My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 33 years old, an emergency medicine resident, and a single mother of 4-year-old twin boys. 3 months ago, I was lying in a hospital bed with a collapsed lung after a terrible car crash. My fingers trembled as I scrolled to my parents' contact. I needed someone, anyone, to stay with Mason and Oliver for just a couple of hours while the medical team fought to stabilize me. What I received, instead, was a message in our family group text that read, "You've always been dramatic and high maintenance. We have concert tickets with Rebecca tonight. Deal with it on your own." So I did. From that hospital room, I contacted an emergency childcare service, paid 4 times their normal rate, and made a choice that would transform everything. I stopped all the payment, the monthly house note, the medical insurance, the vehicle, maintenance, everything I'd been silently covering for the past 7 years. Gone. 3 weeks later, someone knocked on my door. Before I share who appeared and what transpired, please take a second to like and subscribe, but only if you're truly enjoying this journey. Leave a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your corner of the world. I genuinely love hearing from you. Now, let me bring you back to the beginning. Growing up in the Mitchell family, I discovered early on that affection came with a hierarchy. My older sister, Rebecca, was the golden child. She always had been. 3 years my senior, naturally stunning and possessing this charismatic energy that made our parents beam whenever she entered a space. When she declared her dream of becoming an interior designer, Mom wept tears of joy. Dad proclaimed her our creative genius. When I announced my intention to pursue emergency medicine, Dad gave a single nod. That's sensible. That was the extent of it. Sensible. I convinced myself it didn't hurt. I immersed myself in study guides, dominated every test, and fought my way into one of the nation's premier medical programs. 4 years of undergraduate work, 4 years of medical school, 3 grueling years of residency focusing on emergency medicine. The day I completed medical school should have ranked among my life's greatest achievements. My parents showed up 2 hours behind schedule. "Apologies, honey," Mom offered, avoiding eye contact. Rebecca had a last-minute meeting with a gallery owner. We needed to get her there first. No bouquet, no celebratory meal, just a hurried photograph in the parking area before they departed, because Rebecca required emotional support following her appointment. Compare that to Rebecca's first gallery showing 4 years prior. The entire family traveled to Chicago. Luxury accommodations, VIP seating. Dad shared 20 pictures on social media with captions like, "Incredibly proud of our artistic daughter." I received a parking lot snapshot and a tepid, "Well done, sweetheart." I rationalized it all. Design is cutthroat. Rebecca required more backing. Medicine offers stability. I could manage independently. But what I failed to grasp then was that my parent favoritism wasn't merely emotional. It was monetary. And I was the one bankrolling it all. It began 7 years ago, immediately after my medical school graduation. Dad telephoned one night, his tone strained with discomfort. "Sarah, we're facing a slight problem. The house payment is coming due, and finances are stretched this month. Could you assist us? Just this one time." Just this one time. I wired $2,600 that very evening without hesitation. They were my parents. Naturally, I would help. But just this one time evolved into every single month. The mortgage, followed by their health insurance payment, $900 monthly, after Dad's employer terminated their coverage. Then, the crises, vehicle repairs, plumbing disasters, heating system replacement. I never refused. Not once. When I became pregnant with the twins and their father abandoned us during my 6th month, I contacted my parents from the medical center after a frightening bleeding complication. I was petrified, isolated, desperate for someone. "Oh, sweetheart, we wish we could be there," Mom said. "But Rebecca is extremely overwhelmed after her show in Seattle. She genuinely needs our presence right now." They didn't come. Not for the delivery. Not during the initial month when I was barely conscious, feeding 2 infants while preparing for my licensing examinations. But the automatic payments continued flowing out. $2,600 for the mortgage, $900 for insurance, whatever additional amounts they required. I maintained a detailed log. I'm uncertain why. Perhaps some fragment of me needed to witness it documented. The figures were staggering. 7 years, $290,000, approximately. I never demanded appreciation. I never anticipated recognition. But I also never anticipated being labeled high maintenance by the individuals I'd been supporting for nearly 7 years. That awakening was approaching. I simply didn't realize it yet. The collision occurred on a Thursday afternoon. I was heading home, following an 18-hour shift, My eyelids felt heavy, but I remained focused. Enough. The signal turned green. I proceeded into the crossing. I never noticed the SUV. It ran the red light at 55 miles per hour. The collision struck my driver's door. Glass shattered everywhere. Metal screamed. The world rotated, then went dark. I regained consciousness in an ambulance, searing pain throughout my chest cavity. A recognizable face appeared above me. Sarah, can you hear me? Dr. James Rodriguez, trauma physician at my hospital. We'd collaborated for 3 years. James, my voice emerged incorrectly. Faint. What's wrong? You were in a serious accident. We're transporting you immediately. Possible pneumothorax and internal trauma. You're going to require emergency treatment. Emergency treatment? The words struck me like a second impact. My boys, I gripped his sleeve. Mason and Oliver, they're with the nanny. She finishes at 7:30. James verified his watch. It's 6:45. 45 minutes. I had 45 minutes to locate someone to care for my children while physicians worked to save me. I searched for my phone with shaking hand. Blood smeared the display as I pulled up my parent contact. It rang 6 times. Sarah, Dad's voice carried irritation. We're about to head out. What's the matter? Dad, I need assistance. The words spilled out, between gasps of agony. I was in a crash. I'm being rushed to the hospital. Emergency surgery. Please, I need you and Mom to watch the twins. Just for a couple of hours. Silence filled the line. Then, wait a moment. I heard muffled conversation. My mother's tone sharp and aggravated. Rebecca's laughter somewhere in the background. The line went still. Then my device buzzed with a text alert. Family group message. The text was from my mother. Sarah, you've always been dramatic and high maintenance. We have concert tickets with Rebecca tonight. We've been planning this for weeks. Deal with it on your own. I read it twice, 3 times. The words remained unchanged. A second message materialized from Dad. You're a physician. You're familiar with hospitals. Don't turn this into something bigger than necessary. Then Rebecca. Not word, just a crying laughing emoji. That was it. That was my worth to them. A mocking emoji. While I lay bleeding in an ambulance, James was observing me. I hadn't realized he could view my display until he spoke. Sarah. His voice was measured. What did they respond? I couldn't answer. Something had fractured inside me, and it wasn't merely the punctured lung. I need a device, I whispered. One with internet access. Mine's dying. He provided his without question. I searched. Emergency childcare services. Located one with round-the-clock availability. Called. Described the circumstances in brief professional terms. Yes, I would pay quadruple their standard rate. Yes, I would supply the nanny's information for coordination. Yes, I authorized immediate payment. Completed in 5 minutes. James was still watching me when I returned his device. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Can you capture those messages? I requested. From my phone before it dies? He nodded gradually. Yes, I can do that. I closed my eyes as the ambulance arrived at the medical facility bay. The pain was overwhelming now, but it wasn't originating from my chest anymore. From that hospital bed with tubes in my vein and fear in my heart, I made the simplest decision of my life. The procedure lasted 5 hours. Collapsed lung, internal hemorrhaging, another several minutes, and I might not have survived. I remained in the hospital for 6 days. 6 days of IV medications, pain relief fog, and nurses monitoring my condition every few hours. Not a single call from my parents, not a single text, not a single visit. The emergency childcare service was costly, but valuable. Beyond measure. They coordinated with my regular nanny, kept Mason and Oliver safe and cared for, provided me daily photo updates. Complete strangers demonstrated more concern for my situation than my own family. On day 4, I requested my laptop from the nurse. Are you certain you're ready for that? She asked. You should be recuperating. I need to handle something important. My hands were unwavering as I accessed my banking application. 7 years of automatic payments stared back at me, consistent as clockwork. $2,600 on the 1st of every month, $900 on the 15th. I terminated them all. Then I opened my device settings, blocked my father's contact, my mother's, Rebecca's. There was no dramatic scene, no tears, no second guessing. It felt like releasing a burden I'd been carrying so extensively I'd forgotten it was there. James visited later that afternoon. He'd checked on me daily, bringing coffee and quiet presents. How are you feeling? He inquired. I looked up at him, and for the first time in years, I spoke the truth. Better. For the first time in 7 years, I genuinely feel better. He didn't press for explanations. He simply nodded as though he understood. I knew the consequences were coming. My parents would notice the absent funds. They would rage and plead and demand justification. But I didn't anticipate what came next. 3 weeks following my surgery, I was finally home, moving carefully, still tender but alive. It was a Sunday morning. I was preparing French toast for Mason and Oliver, their favorite weekend breakfast. The kitchen smelled of cinnamon and syrup. Oliver was attempting to construct with his building block. Mason was helping by demolishing them. Then came the knock. 3 firm raps on my front entrance. I dried my hands on a kitchen towel, my pulse accelerating. If it was my parents, I wasn't prepared. I didn't know if I'd ever be prepared. I peered through the peephole and my breath stopped. Standing at my doorstep was an elderly gentleman in his mid-70s, silver hair, neatly styled, penetrating blue eyes that I recalled from childhood, a bearing that still carried the authority of 35 years in corporate law. Grandpa William. I hadn't seen him in nearly 4 years. My parents always manufactured excuses for why we couldn't visit. Too occupied, too distant, too impractical. I opened the door and he embraced me so firmly it made my surgical wound ache. Sarah, his voice was rough with emotion. Let me see you. He stepped back, his eyes examining my face, then descending to where my hand rested protectively over my abdomen. I know everything, he said quietly. Margaret told me. Aunt Margaret, my mother's younger sister, the only person in the family who'd ever openly challenged how my parents treated me. Grandpa, I don't. He raised a hand. You don't need to justify anything. But I do need you to accompany me somewhere. He reached into his jacket and extracted an envelope, ivory-colored, refined, official. An invitation. My 75th birthday celebration next Sunday. The entire family will be present. His eyes met mine, and I have some truths that need to be spoken. Grandpa William sat at my kitchen table, observing Mason and Oliver with a gentle smile. They'd warmed to him instantly, displaying their toys, demanding his focus. He gave it generously. They resemble you at that age, he said. Same determined expression. I placed 2 coffee cups down and occupied the seat across from him. Grandpa, how did you discover about the accident? About everything? Margaret contacted me the evening it occurred. He wrapped his hands around the mug. She'd learned through one of your cousins. When she informed me what your parents did, he stopped, jaw clenching. I've observed this for years, Sarah. The way Jennifer and David treat you versus Rebecca. I'm old, but I'm not oblivious. I stared at my coffee. I thought perhaps I was imagining it, inflating it beyond reality. You weren't. His voice carried the weight of a man who'd spent decades separating fact from fiction. I was a corporate attorney for 35 years. I know how to interpret people. I recognize what favoritism resembles, what exploitation resembles. He leaned forward. Tell me something. Do you still possess records of the funds you've sent them? I nodded slowly. Every transaction. 7 years. Excellent. He sat back. I want you to compile a summary. Every payment, every date, every amount. Why? Because at my birthday celebration, before the entire family, I intend for the truth to emerge. His eyes were calm, not as an assault, not as retaliation, simply as fact. And facts, as I learned in 35 years of law, have a way of speaking for themselves. My hands trembled around my mug. What if they despise me? The ones who matter won't. He reached across and squeezed my hand. And the ones who do never deserved you in the first place. The following 3 weeks were a whirlwind of organization. I printed every bank statement, every transfer verification, 7 years of financial documentation organized chronologically, compiled in a simple folder. Examining it all together was overwhelming. Month after month, year after year, a stream of money flowing one direction. Aunt Margaret visited 4 days before the celebration. She was 58, sharp-minded, and had always been the family outlier for refusing to pretend everything was acceptable. She flipped through the folder, her expression darkening with each page. $290,000, she stated flatly. Sarah, do you comprehend what this represents? I know. This is more than most people earn in 6 years of full-time employment. She set down the folder. And they called you high maintenance. I pressed my palms against the kitchen counter. I don't want to destroy the family, Aunt Margaret. I just want them to see, to acknowledge what I've done. You're not destroying anything. She stood and placed her hand on my shoulder. You're just ending the deception. They built their comfortable existence on your silence. You're not obligated to continue providing that. I nodded, though my stomach churned with anxiety. What if everyone sides with them? Some might. Family is complex, she shrugged. But your grandfather has considerable influence. And more importantly, you have the truth. That evening, I received a text from a cousin I rarely spoke to. Heard you and your parents had a disagreement. Rebecca's been informing everyone you've been acting unstable since your accident. Just wanted to alert you. I stared at the message. They were already constructing the narrative, portraying me as irrational, preparing their defense before I even arrived. I hadn't wanted a confrontation, but it seemed they were initiating one anyway. Grandpa William's residence was a traditional estate on 4 acres of pristine grounds, white pillars, expansive porch, The type of property that whispered inherited wealth and quiet influence. I pulled into the curved driveway, my hands tight on the steering wheel. Mason and Oliver were in their car seats, chattering about the enormous house and the balloons they could observe through the windows. More than 50 vehicles lined the property. The entire family was here. I wore a simple charcoal dress, professional, understated. I wasn't here to create a spectacle. I was here to speak the truth. The folder was in my bag. Inside, the celebration was already underway. Servers circulated with sparkling wine. A pianist played in the corner. Crystal and china gleamed under the chandelier illumination. I spotted them immediately. My parents stood near the fireplace, Dad in his finest suit, appearing distinguished, Mom in an ivory dress, laughing at something someone mentioned. They noticed me. At the same instant, Mom's laughter ceased. Dad's face went rigid. For an extended moment, none of us moved. Then Rebecca appeared. My sister glided over in a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly loan payment. Her smile was flawless. Her eyes were frozen. "Oh, Sarah." She air-kissed my cheek. "You came. We heard about your crash. Nothing too severe, I trust?" I met her gaze steadily. A collapsed lung and internal bleeding. "I nearly died." Her smile wavered. "Mom mentioned it was just a minor collision." Mom wasn't present. I shifted Oliver to my other hip. "None of you were." Rebecca's composure cracked for just an instant. Then, she recovered, patting my arm with false concern. "Well, you appear fine now. That's what counts." She drifted away, but I sensed the first rumble of thunder. This was only the beginning. The offensive came 40 minutes into the celebration. I was getting juiced for the twins when I heard Rebecca's voice, deliberately elevated, carrying across the space. "I'm genuinely concerned about Sarah, honestly." She was speaking to a cluster of aunts and cousins near the dessert display. "The crash really impacted her. She's been saying the most unusual things. Severed all communication with Mom and Dad for no apparent reason." I kept my back turned, but every word struck like a small blade. Mom joined in, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "We've attempted everything. Calls, messages. She won't respond. I believe she's experiencing some type of mental crisis." "Poor thing," someone murmured. "She's always been the sensitive one," Rebecca added. "Remember how emotional she was as a teenager? I think the pressure of being a single mother has just been overwhelming." I felt eyes on me, sympathetic glances, whispered concerns. I said nothing. Just handed Oliver his juice cup and smoothed Mason's hair. Aunt Margaret materialized at my side, her voice low and furious. "They've been establishing groundwork all week, contacting relatives, planting suggestions. They sense something's approaching, and attempting to discredit you first." "I know. Are you okay?" I looked across the room at my grandfather. He was observing the scene with an unreadable expression, a glass of bourbon in his hand. He gave me the smallest nod. "I'm fine," I told Margaret. "Let them talk." The room quieted abruptly. Someone clinked a glass. Grandpa William rose from his chair. At 75, he still commanded attention like the attorney he'd been for 4 decades. Every eye in the room turned to him. "Before we continue with the festivities," he said, his voice carrying effortlessly, "I have a few matters I'd like to address." The atmosphere changed. This was it. "Okay, I need to pause here for a moment. Before Grandpa reveals what he knows, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where someone attempted to rewrite the truth about you? Where they painted you as unstable just because you finally defended yourself?" Drop a comment and share your experience, or just type truth if you've been there. And if you're enjoying this, please hit that like button. Trust me, what happens next is worth staying for. Now, back to the celebration. Before Grandpa could continue, my father stepped forward. "Dad, wait." His voice was controlled, but I could see the tension in his jaw. "Before you say anything, there's something the family should understand." Grandpa raised an eyebrow. "David." Dad turned to face the room, every inch the concerned father. "As many of you may have heard, my daughter Sarah has been going through a challenging time." He gestured toward me with a sad smile. "After her accident, she's been confused, withdrawn. She's terminated contact with her mother and me entirely." Mom stepped up beside him, still clutching that tissue. "We've only ever wanted the best for her," she said, her voice trembling. "But she's been spreading terrible falsehoods about us, claiming we abandoned her, that we don't care for her." The room was silent. I felt 50 pairs of eyes boring into me. "We've tried to be understanding," Dad continued, "but it's been heartbreaking. We gave that girl everything. Everything. She's even been claiming we refused to help her during her accident, which is absolutely false," Rebecca added, her voice carrying across the room. There must be some kind of confusion. Someone near me let out a sympathetic murmur. "Those poor people." I stood, frozen. Mason had buried his face in my neck, sensing the tension. Sarah, an aunt I barely knew, approached me. "Honey, is everything all right? Your parents are so concerned about you." I opened my mouth to respond, but no words emerged. Then Grandpa William's voice cut through the room like thunder. "Are you finished, David?" The question was quiet, mild even, but every person in that room heard the steel underneath. Dad's confident expression faltered. "I just thought the family should understand." "The family should understand the truth," Grandpa interrupted, "and I intend to provide it to them." Grandpa William walked to the center of the room. His gait was measured, deliberate, the walk of a man who had presided over countless boardrooms and never once lost control. "I've listened to your concerns, David," he said. "Jennifer, Rebecca, you've painted a very clear picture of a troubled young woman who's turned against her loving family." He paused, letting the words hang. "Now I'd like to ask some questions." Dad shifted uncomfortably. "Dad, I don't think this is the place." "This is exactly the place." Grandpa's voice didn't rise, but it hardened. "This is family, and families should know the truth about each other." He turned to my father. "David, a simple question. Who has been paying the mortgage on your house for the past 7 years?" The color drained from Dad's face. "What? Your mortgage? $2,600 a month for 7 years. Who's been paying it?" "We." Dad's eyes darted to Mom. "We pay our own mortgage." "Do you?" Grandpa reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folder. "My folder. Because I have here a complete record of bank transfers from Sarah's account to your mortgage company every month for 84 consecutive months." A murmur rippled through the room. That's a misunderstanding," Mom stammered. Sarah offered. "We never asked." "I'm not suggesting you held a weapon to her head," Grandpa said calmly. "I'm simply establishing fact." He opened the folder. "Let me share some numbers with the family. I think they'll find them illuminating." Across the room, Rebecca had gone pale. Dad's hands were clenched at his sides. Mom looked like she might collapse, and I stood there holding my children, my heart pounding as the truth finally began to surface. 7 years, Grandpa William read from the folder. "Let's break it down." The room was utterly silent. Even the pianist had stopped playing. "Mortgage payments, $218,400. He looked up. "That's the house David and Jennifer live in. The house they claim they pay for themselves," someone gasped. "Health insurance premiums, $75,600. When David's company dropped their coverage." Sarah picked up the bill. He flipped a page. "Car repairs, home maintenance, emergency expenses, approximately $38,000. Another page. "Cash gifts and financial support for Rebecca's design ventures, $10,000. He closed the folder. "Total, $342,000, give or take." The silence was deafening. Aunt Margaret stepped forward. "For context, everyone, that's more than most people make in 6 years of full-time work. Sarah did this while completing her medical residency and raising infant twins alone." She offered. Mom's voice cracked. "We never forced her." "No one said you forced her," Grandpa replied. "But I am curious. In 7 years of receiving this support, how many times did you say thank you?" "No answer." "How many times did you visit her in the hospital after her twins were born?" Still nothing. "How many times did you show up for her?" My mother started crying. Not the delicate, sympathetic tears from earlier. Real ugly sobs. "We thought she was fine," Dad said, his voice hollow. "She never complained. She always managed." "She managed," Grandpa repeated. "Because she had to. Because you taught her that her needs didn't matter." An uncle near the back shook his head. "Jesus, David, $342,000 and you called her high maintenance." Dad flinched, like he'd been struck. But Grandpa wasn't finished. "There's one more thing the family should hear," Grandpa said. He pulled out his phone, adjusting his reading glasses. 3 months ago, Sarah was in a car accident, a serious one. She was bleeding internally and being rushed to emergency surgery. From the ambulance, she called her parents. Her children were home with a nanny who was about to leave. She needed someone to watch them for a few hours. He paused, looking directly at my parents. "This is the text message she received in response. From Jennifer. I'll read it exactly." He cleared his throat. "Sarah, you've always been dramatic and high maintenance. We have concert tickets with Rebecca tonight. Deal with it on your own." The room erupted. "Oh my God," someone breathed. "That's not. You're taking it out of context," Rebecca said desperately. "There is no context," Aunt Margaret snapped. "That makes abandoning your daughter during a medical emergency acceptable." "We didn't know it was serious," Dad shouted. "Did you ask?" Grandpa's voice cut through the chaos. "Did you call her back? Did you come to the hospital?" Silent. The answer, for those wondering, is no. No and no. A woman I recognized as a distant cousin stepped away from my parent, her face twisted with disgust. Several others followed. "I didn't mean it like that," my mother sobbed. "I was frustrated. You didn't think your daughter might die," Grandpa finished. "Because you never thought about her at all. He turned to face the room. I'm not asking anyone to pass judgment. I'm simply presenting facts. What you do with them is your own choice. He looked at me finally, his eyes soft. Sarah, is there anything you'd like to say? I hadn't planned to speak. I'd come here expecting Grandpa to handle everything, to let the facts speak for themselves, while I stood silently in vindication. But looking around the room at my crying mother, my shell-shocked father, my sister's crumbling facade, I realized I had something to say. After all, I handed Oliver to Aunt Margaret and stepped forward. I didn't come here for revenge. My voice was steadier than I expected. I came here because Grandpa invited me, and because for 33 years I've been living with a version of my family that wasn't real. A version where I was the strong one, the reliable one, the one who didn't need anything. I looked at my parent. I believed you when you said Rebecca needed more support because her industry was harder. When you said I could handle things on my own, I believed you, and I tried to be what you needed me to be. A tear slid down my cheek, but I didn't wipe it away. But that night, in the ambulance, bleeding and terrified, I finally understood. I wasn't strong to you, I was convenient, I wasn't reliable, I was exploitable. And no matter how much I gave, it would never be enough to make you see me the way you see her. Several family members had moved closer to me. An aunt touched my arm, a cousin nodded with tears in his eyes. My father started to speak. Sarah, I'm not finished. He stopped. I don't hate you, I said quietly. But I can't keep pretending this is okay. I can't keep purchasing love that should have been free. An uncle across the room turned to my father. How could you, David? This whole time you've been living off your daughter while treating her like nothing? The room was turning. I could feel it. So what now? Dad's voice was desperate. You've humiliated us in front of the whole family. Are you satisfied? I shook my head slowly. I'm not satisfied, Dad. None of this makes me satisfied. I took a breath. But I'm also not sorry, because this isn't about humiliation. It's about honesty. For the first time in 7 years, our family knows the truth. Not your version. Not Rebecca's spin. The truth. Rebecca tried once more. This is ridiculous. You're acting like we're monsters. We're your family. Families help each other. You're right. I turned to face her. Families do help each other. So where were you when I was pregnant and alone? Where were you when I was raising newborns while studying for boards? Where were you when I was bleeding out in an ambulance? She had no answer. I looked back at my parent. From now on, I won't be sending money. Not because I can't afford it, but because financial support should be a gift, not an obligation. And it should flow both ways in a family that actually cares about each other. My mother reached toward me. Sarah, please. I'm also not cutting you off forever, I continued. But I need space. Real space. Not a few weeks of guilt tripping, followed by everything going back to normal. I need you to actually think about what you've done. And if someday you can acknowledge it, really acknowledge it, maybe we can rebuild something. I took Oliver back from Aunt Margaret, but I won't hold my breath. A great aunt approached me, taking my hands in her weathered one. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I had no idea. All these years I thought you were the one who had it easy. I know, I said, softly. Everyone did. That's how it was supposed to look. All right, I want to check in with you again. That moment when I finally said those words, when I chose myself for the first time, did it resonate with you? I know so many of us have been taught that family means sacrifice no matter what. But here's the thing. Boundaries aren't betrayal. Saying no isn't selfish. Type boundaries in the comment if you agree. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, share it with them. Now, let's see what happened in the aftermath. My parents left the celebration early. No one stopped them. No one said goodbye. Dad helped Mom to the car while she sobbed into his shoulder. Rebecca followed with her head down, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. The silence they left behind was heavy, but not uncomfortable. More like the quiet after a storm passes. In the days that followed, the fallout was swift. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from relatives. Cousins I'd barely spoken to in years reached out to apologize. Aunts and uncles who'd always believed my parents' narrative of the perfect family were reevaluating everything. I always thought you were the difficult one, Cousin Rachel texted me. Rebecca made it sound like you pulled away for no reason. I'm so sorry, I believed her. The family group chat, the one where I'd received that devastating message, went silent. Then, it was deleted entirely. More significantly, my parents found themselves quietly excluded from family gathering. When my cousin Michael had his 40th birthday, 4 weeks later, they weren't invited. When Aunt Margaret hosted a summer barbecue, their names weren't on the list. No one made a formal announcement. No one declared sides. They simply stopped being welcome. My mother called me from a new number 3 weeks after the celebration. I let it go to voicemail. Sarah, please, we need to talk. This has all been blown out of proportion. Your father is devastated. I'm devastated. Can't we just move past this? I listened to it once, then deleted it. Forgiveness wasn't a reset button. I knew that now. It was a release for me, not for them. And I wasn't ready to release anything yet. But the financial consequences, those were just beginning. 4 months after the celebration, I got a call from Aunt Margaret. They're selling the house. I set down my coffee cup. What? Your parents? They put the house on the market last week. Word is they couldn't keep up with the mortgage payments. I should have felt something. Satisfaction. Vindication, maybe even guilt. Instead, I just felt tired. Where will they go? Your Uncle Frank is letting them stay in his rental property temporarily. Margaret paused. He made it very clear, it's conditional. They need to get jobs. Real jobs. Not just waiting for someone else to bail them out. Jobs. My parents hadn't worked full-time in years. Dad took early retirement at 57. Mom had never worked outside the home. They'd been living off my money, and they hadn't even realized how dependent they'd become. What about Rebecca? Can't she help? Margaret laughed. It wasn't kind. Rebecca's been struggling since her business partner left. Word got out about the celebration. Someone in the family knows someone in interior design. She lost a major contract, last I heard. She's working part-time at a retail store. I stared out my kitchen window at Mason and Oliver playing in the backyard. I don't want them to suffer, I said quietly. I know you don't, sweetheart. That's because you're a good person. Margaret's voice softened. But they didn't suffer for 7 years because you were supporting them. They didn't grow. They didn't learn. You stopping wasn't cruel. It was necessary. She was right. I knew she was right. That evening, I sat down with my new budget. The $3,500 I used to send my parents every month now went into a college fund for the twins. They'd never worry about student loans. They'd never carry someone else's burden the way I had. That felt like justice enough. The call came on a Wednesday night, 7 months after Grandpa's celebration. I was putting the twins to bed when my phone lit up with an unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something made me answer. Sarah. Rebecca's voice was different, smaller. The polished confidence that had always defined her was gone. Sarah, please don't hang up. She took a shaky breath. I know I don't deserve your time, but I need to say something. I sat down on the edge of my bed. I'm listening. I'm sorry. The words came out cracked. I'm so sorry for everything. For the way I treated you. For the things I said. For laughing at that text message when you were... Her voice broke. When you were dying. I laughed. What kind of person does that? I waited. I didn't know, she continued. About the money. Not all of it. I knew Mom and Dad were struggling, but I thought they were managing. I didn't realize it was you. For 7 years. Sarah, how did I not know? Did you ever ask? Silent. No, she whispered. I didn't. Because I didn't want to know. I liked being the favorite. I liked that everything came easy for me. She laughed bitterly. Nothing's easy anymore. I heard about the contract. Yeah. Turns out, your reputation matters in this industry. Funny how that worked. We sat in silence for a moment. I'm not asking for money, she finally said. Or forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. What I was. What Mom and Dad did. I see all of it. I took a deep breath. Then start from there. Stand on your own feet. Be better. Yeah? Her voice was thick, with tears. I'm trying. Good. I hung up. And for the first time, I felt something like hope. 7 months after that call, 1 year after the accident that changed everything, I stood in my new apartment, watching the sun set through the windows. It wasn't large. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a small kitchen. But it was 10 minutes from the hospital, in a good school district, and most importantly, it was mine. No mortgage payments to parents who didn't appreciate them. No insurance premiums for people who called me high maintenance. Just rent, utilities, and a college fund growing steadily every month. Mason and Oliver were at Grandpa Williams' house for the afternoon. He'd become a fixture in our lives over the past year. Every Sunday, he'd pick them up for adventures. The zoo, the park, ice cream that I pretended not to know about. They're good kids, he told me once. You're raising them right. From him, that meant everything. Aunt Margaret had become more than family. She was a friend. We had dinner together twice a month. She'd helped me navigate the emotional aftermath of the celebration, of setting boundaries, of learning to prioritize myself. You know what I admire about you? She said recently. You didn't become bitter. A lot of people would have. You had every right to. What would be the point? I'd replied. Bitterness is just drinking poison and expecting someone else to get sick. As for my parents, we hadn't spoken directly, but I knew from family whispers that they were still at Uncle Frank's rental. Dad had gotten a part-time job at a home improvement store. Mom was doing administrative work for a local nonprofit. They weren't thriving, but they were surviving. Some days I wondered if they thought about me, if they missed me, if they regretted anything. But those weren't my questions to answer. I'd spent 33 years carrying their weight. It was finally time to put it down. If you've made it this far, I want to leave you with something, not advice. I'm not qualified to tell anyone how to live their life, but maybe a reflection. A lesson I learned the hard way. For 33 years, I believed that love was something you could earn. That if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, asked for nothing in return, eventually the people who were supposed to love me would see my value. I was wrong. Love isn't a transaction. It's not a reward for being useful. And no amount of money, time, or energy can buy something that should have been freely given from the start. The family I have now, Grandpa William, Aunt Margaret, friends like James, who showed up when my own parents wouldn't. They didn't love me because of what I could provide. They loved me because of who I am. That's the difference. And it took almost dying on an operating table to understand it. I don't know what happens next with my parents. Maybe someday they'll truly change. Maybe they'll reach out with genuine remorse, ready to rebuild something real. If that happens, I'll consider it, but I won't wait for it. I won't shape my life around the hope of something that may never come. My life is mine now. My energy, my resources, my love. And if the people who raised you call your self-respect betrayal, then maybe they never deserved your loyalty in the first place. To anyone out there carrying a weight that was never yours to bear, it's okay to put it down. It's okay to choose yourself. You're not selfish. You're not ungrateful. You're not a burden. You're finally free. Thank you so much for staying with me through this story. If it resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe. It means the world to me. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to draw a boundary with family? How did it change your life? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, stories about standing up for yourself and finding your voice, check out the video in the description. I think you'll love it. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve it.